Hello and welcome to another episode of Thread Talks. And today I've got the fabulous Rosie Green. She's not only a stylist, she hosts a podcast. She is a journalist extraordinaire working for many celebrated publications, from Vogue to The Times to Red Magazine. She presents This Morning to help people with relationship issues. And she's also written an incredible book called How to Heal a Broken Heart. And I think we all need to read that because everyone experiences that at some point in their life. Welcome, Rosie.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
It's so great to have you. And I think it's such a hot issue at the moment because everybody, I don't know, there's something about lockdown that created a lot of anxiety and relationship issues, I think. So we were all sort of, in this claustrophobic environment. And I just wondered if you had top tips for an everlasting relationship, taking the pandemic out of the equation, because I think that doesn't help.
Well, I wrote a piece actually about what my divorce how my divorce can teach you not to get divorced, and so in that there were kind of maybe my top 5 things, and I think the main thing actually that I learned was about communication. So I thought actually in my marriage I was communicating. I was saying, please can you pick the children up from school, or what would you like for dinner, all these different things. But actually I realised there were what therapists would call ugly truths that we were not talking about, so the things that you actually just don't want to touch on, and I think they're actually the most important things to talk about. So I wish now that we'd actually been able to talk about the things that were really prominent in our lives, I don't know, how much time we had for each other, or how we divvied up the domestic responsibilities, or what we really wanted from our future. So it's those ugly truths. So I would say for everlasting relationship, it's not the passion, it's not how you look, it's not any of those things, it's just really talking.
And do you think that's a combination of practical and emotional? Because I always think people avoid the emotional more.
Absolutely. And I think there is the practical, but the emotional, as you say, you think you talk about it, but it's quite interesting. You realise, it took for me to get to the sort of marriage counselling stage to realise there was so much that we didn't say to each other, especially around subjects like sex or childcare or your future or all those things. Who's going to be the main breadwinner? How's that going to work? All those things.
And also they can often lead to, when it becomes emotional, to arguments. So
yes,
exactly. It's a tricky one, isn't it?
Yes, and it's almost like you don't want to talk about those things because you don't want the conflict. But actually it's better to have those minor sources of friction to save something massive.
Stop it festering.
Exactly, stop it festering and stop it imploding. Because actually a really amazing relationship therapist once said to me, men tend not to rewrite the contract, they just go and get a new one, which I thought was really interesting, because actually they don't want to have those conversations. But then you end up with this implosion.
Well, it takes a lot of work, as we know.
It does.
So, and what do you think the best advice was when you were going through a very difficult time? Are there any sort of tips that you got from friends, or things that sort of stayed with you? You thought, yes, actually, this is going to help me get through this.
A very simple one was a friend just said to be kind to yourself. I think we're quite often so hard on ourselves. So actually that goes the way through just actually, if you just want to sit there and watch Friends repeats for an afternoon, do it. If you want to get a blow dry, do it. All those things. And also just try and stop those negative voices in your head. And following on from that, I think it's that thing of being treating yourself as a friend would treat you. I think when you have a breakup, especially if you're not the person who has initiated it, you can feel so rejected and your self-worth goes really plummets. But actually a friend of mine was just, actually I see it this way, I see that you're a great person who this has happened to, and that doesn't make you a bad person or a person that no one's ever going to want to be with, so try and see it as your best friend would see it.
And actually those friends that just help you feel better about yourself and valuable.
Absolutely, they are. I mean, for me,
just
my
remind
friends
you
are amazing.
that actually,
yes, exactly. And I think again it's about knowing, sort of actually thinking about who is going to help you in that particular moment, in that particular zone. Is it someone you want to go out and party with, or is it someone that you want to have a real deeper meaningful with, or is it someone that's going to make sure that you don't go and drink a vat load of rosé and feel awful in the morning,
And I think that's so true, that when you go through an very difficult time, there's certain friends that are just perfect for those moments.
Yes, they are. Amazing.
Like you say, it could just be that you need to forget everything, or you need to have that really deep conversation, or then you need someone that's just going to make you feel really good about yourself.
Yeah.
So pick those friends for those moments carefully, I guess.
Absolutely. And I think, you never sort of know who's going to show up either. It could be that some of your friends just can't for whatever reason. Maybe they're too busy, maybe they've got young kids, or maybe they're even, something about it scares them. So I think it's about just accepting who's coming to you in that moment,
And in terms of self-esteem, how long is that journey, and what do you think really helped you, other than invaluable friends? Are there any other top tips you think would help other people going through it in terms of feeling better for yourself? How much time do you give yourself?
I mean, I will just say here, my self-esteem absolutely plummeted. So, I remember going on this divorce retreat and somebody saying, what's your biggest fear? And it's probably not PC to admit this, but I just thought, nobody else ever going to love me ever again. I just genuinely felt so unlovable. And I think, it's annoyingly time. There is an element of that, so I think it... sort of 6 months, a year, something, but I also think it's all about marginal gain. So you can either go one way or the other. And I think if you can manage to do all these small incremental things that are going to make you feel better, slowly they add up to a big difference. Mm-hmm. So, for me, I just never really made time to exercise properly, and I did that. I really love beauty. It's my passion. So actually to go and get my brows done, or go and get my hair done, or, even, I just got really into like aromatherapy oils and having, one in my handbag, just the time taken to put that into my handbag and then rub it onto my pulse points. So it's all those really small things that I think add up of self-care, basically.
Yeah. Little moments, really important. And then moving on to your heart, healing slowly and going on first dates again.
Yeah.
What's your beauty regime? What's your makeup? What's the makeup look?
What's the makeup look? Well, I genuinely think, I remember reading something about, guys, if you've got sort of major lipstick on, that's quite a hazard to being kissed, So I always thought, well, I'm not going to wear a big bright red lip, although if you love a bright red lip, I think you should. So I would just say, for me, supernatural. But having had time to prepare, just the last thing I wanted to do on a date was turn up in a flap, because I think then you sort of transmit that energy. So I would always give myself enough time. For me, it's having my hair done. Really love that. And then I think, I'm sure there are super sophisticated guys out there, but most of them, I think, love the kind of natural look.
I think so. It's less intimidating.
It is.
Just relaxed and even though you're probably like,
inside. Exactly. But actually, all that stuff you've done before has kind of given you a confidence. You've turned up like your best self, Yes.
And brows. Let's get on to brows. You just said that John Lewis is your favourite brow blink. I'm pleased to hear. But what's your relationship with your brows? Do you have a brow story?
Well, I do. I have always sort of had decent brows that I didn't need to do much to, and it's that classic thing of like, you're still using the same sort of shampoo that you're using when you were 20, thinking that that's who you are. And I've sort of realised that actually my brows have thinned quite a lot in my, now that I'm in my mid to late 40s. So actually I'm trying to invest a bit more in my brow game, because I realise that they are... they're really a youth giver, aren't they?
They really are.
Yeah, I mean, I don't need to tell you that.
I think hair in general
is,
just to have, that vibrant, sort of thick, glossy hair. Same with brows.
Yeah.
It's a youthful thing.
It is, and I think if they're dark, you get that kind of, a dermatologist once called it biscuit face to me. You kind of, everything gets a bit beigey. You lose the kind of contrast. So your brows are less dark, your lashes are less dark, your lips are less red. So I just think it's a really easy win to make you look great. I'm thinking about microblading, so I think I might start that journey.
Well, we've had that conversation on this sofa with quite a few guests, and I think it is a really, now it's very natural, it looks great, so I think it could be the way forward for a lot of women, and if not, a good brow tint.
Yes, I know, I love a good brow tint. That's another one of those kind of marginal gains that really, I think, makes a difference. Yeah.
Totally agree. Right, few quick fire questions for you. Okay, skincare or makeup?
Skincare.
Flat white or a latte?
Latte. And if you're ordering for me, it will be skinny with chocolate on top. Terrible.
Skinny and then you put the chocolate on top.
Yeah. I mean,
never mind. It's all about those marginal gains.
Exactly.
Duran Duran or Spandau Ballet?
Oh, 100%
Sorry, we're going back to the 80s.
Duran. Yeah, 100% Duran Duran.
Instagram or TikTok?
Instagram.
If you could choose a perfume oil, would it be jasmine or sandalwood?
Jasmine.
Book or podcast?
I'd have to say podcast at the moment because I've just finished recording one. It's the How to Heal a Broken Heart podcast. And I mean, I've just had such amazing feedback from people who are going through a breakup, and they just say that it's really helped them, and that joys my heart.
You know, I think it's such a lovely thing to hear about other people's experiences to help you feel better and to have some tools to get through times like that. So I'm going to definitely tune into that as well.
Brilliant.
Well, thank you, Rosie. It's been such a pleasure having you. It's really uplifting because I think anyone that's going through any kind of heartbreak, one, should read your book. And secondly, you know, it's just in the short space of time, I think you've shared so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.